Hi guys, so what I wanted to do today was make a little video for your review to kind of help you out as you start working on your review for your test tomorrow, or I should say the next time I would see you. All of these solutions are worked out. I attached an answer key to the review as I always do, but a few of the harder ones I just want to give you, a little bit of a walkthrough of them. Some of the simpler ones I'll just start out or maybe tell you how you would do them. For example, like the first one I'm not going to work out for you, but just turn the tangent in terms of sine over cosine, and that will pretty much simplify that out for you. Okay, so that's kind of how I'm going to go through this. Some of the problems on your review I've given in the past. You do not need to know those or work through those, but if you can, that's why I kind of left them on there, but stroke through them in case you wanted to try some of the harder ones. I also told you in addition to your review, definitely look over your notes and your homework, okay? Everything's kind of fair game, but you're going to have it all in front of you on your test, so you might as well use it and have it ready. On the bottom of your review sheet, sorry, I'm scrolling through these, you will also see again general strategies for proving identities, special strategies for proving identities. This list is on here. It is also on your 5.2 notes. If you have not watched that video and you just copied your homework or something, I recommend going back and looking at that. Okay? So again, I'm not working through all of these on here, just the harder ones. Okay? And the other ones you can just look on the answer key. So something like number 3, I wanted to look at. Number 3, what I would suggest here, whenever you have the sine times the secant, cosine times cosecant, put everything in terms of sine and cosine. So I'm going to keep sine alone, make secant 1 over cos, and then leave my cosine alone, make cosecant 1 over sine. Okay? So what I'm going to get is sine over cosine plus cosine over sine. Now, if you look at your 5.2 notes, so it was your 5.2 notes, and you can go back and look at that video. I believe it was example 6, the second step in example 6, so example 6 on 5.2 notes for the rest. Or you can just look at the worked out solutions. But this is your first step. Then from here, you're going to make a common denominator and proceed. So you can go back and watch my video on 5.2 example 6, or you can just look at the worked out solution. The rest of this is exactly the same. The only thing different is the first step. Okay, so first step, put it in terms of sine and cosine, and then you can solve from there. Okay, number 4, remember, when it comes to simplifying identities, you don't know what the other side is. So something like number 4, I've worked out many times. I've actually worked this one out before for you in 5.1. And this is the conjugate. So you can go look at your 5.1 notes and homework and the answer key to help you with that one. So like I said, I'm just starting you off on some of these problems and telling you where to go if you want different resources. Okay, the next part of the review is proving the following identities. So something like number 1, we start out very simple. Remember, when you are proving identities, you are only touching one side. You cannot touch the other side. You leave it. It's just what you're trying to get to. So this one's actually simple. So I'm going to make cosecant 1 over sine. We did one just like this. If you look back at your 5.2 notes, the sines cancel. We're left with 1 minus cosine squared, which of course is sine squared. When I get to the sine squared, I know I'm done because I got back to my answer. Okay? Number 3. Now, number 3 is absolutely one that I wanted to go over and kind of go over fully, actually, at least start you off. Because the hardest thing about number 3 is, where do I start? And I think you saw one like this on your 5.2 homework. So I would always start for this one on the left side, where the bottom is the 1 minus sine or 1 minus cosine, okay? I'd rather start where there are 2 terms in the bottom. Remember, you are not touching the other side, so do not touch the other side. So I'm just starting with cosine over 1 minus sine. Now, I hope when I write this alone, a lot of you guys see what's going on here. The rest of this is a conjugate problem, okay? That's simply what it is. It's a conjugate. So I'm going to multiply by 1 plus sine over 1 plus sine. Now when I do this, remember, what I want to get to is the blue. 1 plus sine over cosine. I'm now bringing in that 1 plus sine, so I'm a happy camper. I'm going to multiply the top. Remember, leave it out. Leave the cosine out. Do not distribute it in. But I am going to go and FOIL the bottom. And I'll get 1 minus sine squared. And then what's going to happen is I'll have my identity on the bottom. 1 minus sine squared is cosine squared. My squared will cancel on the bottom, my cosine on the top, and guess what? I'm left with 1 plus sine over cosine. I know I'm done when I get back to what I had in blue. Always easier to start on the left side in this case for this one. Okay, so that's why I wanted to go with that. But the technique's still the same, still conjugate. The next one is something that I feel like a lot of you, and judging from your feedback, want to FOIL this, right? You might want to FOIL the left side, but just stop and look at it. 1 minus sine squared, right? I'm clearly going to start on the left side because it's bigger. 1 minus sine squared, what is that? Well, that's a Pythagorean identity, cosine squared. 1 plus tangent squared. Look at your sheet. You're going to have it in front of you. Well, I don't know about you, but that's secant squared. Okay? So we have two different Pythagorean identities. Now, what am I going to do? I want to end up with 1. So I need things to cancel. I'm going to leave the cosine squared, and I'm going to make secant 1 over cosine squared. What happens when we have the same thing on top and bottom? They're going to cancel. I'm just left with 1. How do I know I'm done? Well, 1 is what I wanted, 1 is what I got, and I didn't make it up. Remember, you can't just make up these steps. I'm giving you the question, I'm giving you the answer, you have to give me the steps in between. And I'll know if you jump. You have to write out all of your steps to get credit here. Okay? Okay. And number 5. So, number 5, anything like this, you're going to start on the left side. This was very similar to your last problem on your 5.2 notes. So 5.2 notes, last example. This is where you maybe want to refer. You could look at the video. That would help you out a lot. Okay? But if we're starting this problem off, we're going to clearly start on the left side. Okay, so we have 1 over 1 minus sine of theta plus 1 over 1 plus sine of theta. The only way to do this problem is common denominator. So I'm always going to say I have a 1 minus sine, I have a 1 plus sine. My right one needs a 1 minus sine. My left fraction needs a 1 plus sine. I'm sorry, it's a little messy. Multiply the top, so I'll get 1 plus sine of theta over my common denominator. And then on the right side, obviously, I'll have my 1 minus sine of theta over my common denominator. And at this point, the biggest error I'm seeing here is you guys are canceling. So, like, you'll go and cancel the 1 minus sine over 1 minus sine, or the 1 plus sine over. You don't want to do that. You just put that there. Okay, you just created that common denominator so that you had it. So don't undo it. And I'm just going to add the tops now. I'm actually going to do the addition and then leave the bottom alone and combine them. So I'll get my common denominator on the bottom. Okay, over, and then on top, I'll get 2, and then the signs will, of course, cancel. So the signs will, of course, cancel from there, and this is what I'll be left with. Now I want to be left with 2 secant squared. That's what I want to get to at the end, which is really 2 over cosine squared. So if I can get cosine squared in the bottom, I'll be good to go. Well, if I FOIL at the bottom, I'll get 2 over 1 minus sine squared, which is 2 over cosine squared. And guess what? That is 2 secant squared. Okay, so like I said, you can use this. Go check your review answer key. And also look at those 5.2 notes. Look at that last problem. I did one just like this, and you had one on your homework. And just like that, let's look at this last problem. This last problem, The first thing I did when I did this was I looked at it and said, do I see any identities? Remember, 1 minus first off, I'm definitely going to start on the left side because the right side's just short. It's tiny, okay? There's no reason. It's easier to break it down than build it up. Start on the left side here. My next thing is that do not make 1 minus cosine sine. 1 minus cosine squared is sine squared, but 1 minus cosine is not equal to sine. So, I don't have an identity here at all. The only thing I could do is put everything in terms of sine and cosine. But what I'm actually going to do first is I'm going to, you have two options. You can either put it in terms of sine and cosine before you FOIL it out, or you can just go and FOIL. So I'm just going to go and FOIL. So I'll get 1 times cosecant, which is cosecant. Okay. My outer term is 1 times cotangent, so plus cotangent. My inner term is minus cosine times cosecant. So I'm just going to leave it. And my last term is minus cosine times cotangent. Yeah, I get that it's ugly. Just leave it. Now is when I'm going to ask myself, is there anything that I can clean up? Okay, is there anything I can do at all? So the things that are really screaming out to me to clean up, you know, why don't I just put everything in terms of sine and cosine and see what happens? So I have 1 over sine plus cosine of theta over sine theta minus cosine of theta times 1 over sine theta minus cosine of theta, and then cotangent, I'm going to make cosine over sine. Remember, I'm putting everything in terms of sine and cosine. Before I do anything on this left side at all, I'm going to handle my cosine of theta times 1 over sine and my cosine. I'm going to handle all of that. So I have 1 over sine plus cosine sorry guys, my stylus, like I said, is acting up a little bit, so we get cosine over sine, there we go, a little bit better, minus cosine over sine, and then we get minus cosine times cosine squared over sine. So does anyone see anything that looks similar, right? We have a plus cosine over sine, minus cosine over sine, so what's going to happen? Well, this is really like plus cotangent minus cotangent, so they're actually just going to cancel. And I'm left with 1 over sine minus cosine squared over sine. Now, they're two fractions, but if you notice, they have a common denominator. So I can combine the top. 1 minus cosine squared over sine. 1 minus cosine squared is sine squared over sine, which is just equal to the sine of theta. And you know I'm done when I get back to what I wanted. So for this one, a different way that you could have done it is you could have just, you know, turned everything in terms of sine and cosine and then FOILed it, but I feel like that would just be very messy because you're FOILing fractions. It's easier to just do without the fractions, then put everything in terms of sine and cosine. And then on the last page, like I said, here are your techniques. So those are just a few of the problems that I wanted to work through for you. Check the answer key, and you know, if you can do all this and you know have this all organized, have all of your 5.1 notes and homework organized, have your 5.2 notes and homework organized, so that way you're ready to take your test the next time I see you. Last grade of the marking period. No other grades, no other corrections, nothing, okay? It's just those few grades. A lot of these past few things have been open notes, which should be helpful for your grade, and hopefully you've been, you know, really doing your homework so that you actually know what's going on. I will be going through your tests, you know, very carefully and look for cheating and things like that, so make sure you actually know what you're doing, okay? Have a wonderful day, and I hope this helps.